Now, despite preparations for its national elective convention, scheduled for November 15 and 16 in Ibadan, Oyo State capital, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, remains immersed in internal wranglings over control of structures, zonal leadership, and convention arrangements.
Now, the deepening crisis within the PDP has further widened as former governors Samuel Otom and Ayo Fayose have thrown their weight behind the Nyesom Wike-led faction and endorsed National Vice Chairman North Central, Abdurrahman Mohammed, as acting national chairman.
And tension escalated on Friday last week when a federal high court in Abuja granted an interim injunction restraining the party from holding its convention pending compliance with its constitutional and the Electoral Act.
Justice James Omotosho has ordered the PDP to suspend all convention preparations until further notice, a ruling that has now deepened the division within the party.
Absolutely. Now, subsequently to that, the Damagun-led National Working Committee announced the suspension of its National Secretary, Comrade Samuel Anyao, National Legal Advisor, his Deputy and National Organizing Secretary for alleged anti-party activities. But in a swift response, the rival faction, led by National Secretary, suspended Damagun himself, his Deputy South and National Publicity Secretary, again for alleged financial misconduct and incompetence.
Meanwhile, a state high court in Ibadan has given Damagun-led PDP the nod to go ahead with the November National Elective Convention in Ibadan and enjoined INEC to participate, turning effectively the courts to a battleground, really.
All right.
Well, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Victor Azu.
And I'm Claire Adilabu Abdurrazak. Thank you for joining us this Thursday morning. And we're live from Abuja on the network service of the NTA. Chinayemwe will be with us in a short while for the morning news. And of course, much later, Chukwudekolu Ugbaja will come on for the newspaper review. Let's now join Chinaye. Yes, thank you very much for tuning in. And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service. So, you know, our conversation this morning is on the PDP internal crisis and probably the way out. We will take this background report by Uyemi Ajayi, and when we come back, we'll get into the nitty-gritty of our conversation.
It is no more news that the PDP, People's Democratic Party, is currently embroiled in a deepening leadership crisis. The key issues cut across different areas. First is the leadership dispute. There is a power struggle between Umar Damagun faction, the current national chairman, backed by some governors, and Abdurrahman Mohammed, appointed acting national chairman by a rival faction led by Nyesom Wike and the national secretary, Samuel Anyao. Umar Damagun suspended key officials, including the National Secretary, the National Legal Advisor, his Deputy and National Organizing Secretary for anti-party activities, and in response, the Nyesom Wike's camp suspended Damagun and appointed Abdurrahman Mohammed as the acting chairman. This led to court battles, resulting in conflicting court rulings, and Oyo High Court has cleared the November 15 National Convention to proceed, while a federal high court in Abuja halted it until party constitution issues are resolved, and this has intensified the factional fight. However, the Wike faction took over the PDP National Secretariat, with Mohammed and his supporters forcing their way into the chairman's office, while the Damagun's camp insists he remains the legitimate chairman. Meanwhile, the North Central PDP leadership had rejected Damagun's removal, calling it a political coup. Former Ekiti State Governor Ayo Fayose has labelled the Damagun leadership as undertakers burying PDP, blaming Damagun for the crisis. The former governor of Benue State, Samuel Otom, also blames lack of cohesion in party management for the crisis. Analysts had warned that the infighting could weaken PDP ahead of 2027 elections, with defections to APC already hurting the party. Stakeholders are calling for unity, but power struggles and court outcomes will shape the party's direction. Already, PDP Board of Trustees has met setting up a reconciliation committee ahead of the convention, but the Wike and Yahoo faction continue to maintain that the Damagun-led faction is illegal and not recognized. So what's the way out? A golden question, unsure of an answer, but our guest already in the studio might just be of help.
All right. Many thanks, Uyeyemi Ajayi. We'll soon find out if the guests in the studio and outside of it will be of help. Well, let me begin by introducing for this conversation on the PDP internal crisis and way out by introducing Honorable Shaba Ibrahim, a former member of the House of Representatives and a legal practitioner. Good to see you again and welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Nigerians. It's my pleasure to be here.
Also here is Jide Ojo, you know him, public affairs analyst. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Victor and Claire. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right, joining us via Zoom from Ibadan is Emmanuel Remi Ayede, and he's a professor of political institutions, governance, and public policy Department of the Political Science, University of Ibadan. Professor, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation.
Yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be part of this session, and good morning to Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, this promises to be an exciting conversation. You know, someone described the PDP as, you know, like a comedy. I mean, it's a reality show. What is happening now is more or less like a reality show. Suspension, counter suspension, tit-tat suspension, court orders. And if it were a movie, you know what would happen? PDP would have won the most, you know, AMVCA award and another. But let me start with Honorable Shaba. You are laughing. No, am I right?
Not exactly.
Not exactly.
Go ahead, yeah, but go ahead. It's okay.
It's okay. You know, so, I mean, this convention, is it likely to hold? Let's start from the convention.
Well, let me state very clearly that I'm not a member of the Convention Planning Committee. I do not have any direct connection apart from being a statutory delegate at the convention if it holds. But a number of things that are happening now suggest to me that if the convention were to go ahead, and I believe, knowing the pedigree of some of the drivers of the party, it could go ahead.
Like who? Like who?
Just a moment. Knowing the pedigree of some of our party leaders, and, they may well go ahead with the convention, albeit at considerable risk. Considerable in the sense that the party has been willingly driven into a conundrum. We've had a situation where, in order to spite our faces, we've had to cut our noses somehow. And the active players here, unfortunately, are people who are major beneficiaries of whatever the PDP represented in the past. Now we're at the crossroad. There are court injunctions seeming to suggest that that convention should only go on if certain preconditions or prerequisites are met. And this, to my mind, to my knowledge, is predicated on existing judicial pronouncements that seems to, have been ignored in the past by the party. So, going ahead with the convention will not be helpful in my own humble view, unless you are able to. You can't weave around judicial pronouncements. You either obey them or you appeal them. As it is, I've always thought about the kind of ingenuity that some of us put forth. There is a court judgment. Rather than address it in what some of us would term as in judicial parlance you call forum shopping, you have another court deciding on something similar to what has been laid to rest by a court of competent jurisdiction until it is set aside. So from the legal perspective, that convention should not be going ahead. But from knowledge and the way and manner that impunity has driven down, eaten deep into the fabrics of the party, I know that there will be those who will be able to say, look, let's go ahead, whatever happens. And with all due respect, it's not going to be helpful.
And I was going to ask you, and I did ask, you talked about the characters of these fellows, whom you refer to as these leaders of the party. Who are they? Who are these leaders that will probably go ahead with the convention in Ibadan?
Those
because they're not faceless.
It is idle to pretend that we don't know the major gladiators on both sides of the divide.
I don't know now.
I think you know.
No, I don't.
Every Nigerian does. Those who are interested in politics. I want to be very careful with mentioning names, but the leadership of the party, as fragmented as it is driven. We're polarized along. It used to be like two major factions, but one that got asphyxiated with a toxicity around the party have since exited. The ones that people were made to believe were the major drivers of the crisis in the party have said, oh, I've had enough, we've had enough, we're going. Then the one that was supposed to be a monolithic block, you understand, of people who had acted together, done things together as brothers, when it came to facing who they considered the common enemy, are now fighting each other.
You said, sorry, Victor, I know, you said you would have been a delegate. If I don't know.
No, I'm a delegate.
Oh, you are a delegate.
You see,
okay. So would you be going if that?
They are still going where? To Ibadan, you mean?
Yeah.
For the convention?
Yeah.
For God's sake, I'm a lawyer. I cannot willingly be. I resist that invitation to lending my hand to something that I see could bring up issues of legality. It's too. The cloud around it is too hazy for me to waste my time on such a voyage.
So you're not among the Damagun-led faction. Okay.
All right.
Victor.
Jide, what in your view precisely lies at the heart of the PDP crisis as it is? Is it ideology? Is it ego? Is it control of structures?
Thank you, Victor. It's a portfolio of all the things you've mentioned. It's ego, it's impunity, is power struggle for 2027 and beyond. Some people want to control the levers of power ahead of next year when nomination for 2027 will happen. And I like the characterization the Honorable Shaba Ibrahim has given. And sometimes politics is, it's not sometimes, all the time. It's a game of intrigues and it's a game of interest. You will have thought that the common enemy, who people said, these are the witches and wizards that are not allowing the party to rest. They voluntarily exited many months back. And those who have joined forces to say we are the G5, acting together, G5. Now, there's a breakaway faction in that G5 that is now at loggerheads about who controls. And unfortunately,
maybe because G is alphabet and 5 is number.
Well, let's not be that simplistic. Yesterday, I had expected the board of trustees that met, they claim that they were not taking sides, but obviously they took side. Because when I saw those who attended that board of trustee meeting yesterday, it was only one side of the faction. The other faction either were not invited or declined invitation. And now I learned that there are crises in 14 states of PDP, state chapters. I wonder who will be delegates from those 14 states going to Ibadan. Who will be there? Who are they going to be? Or 14 states will not have delegates, and then you go ahead and say you have had a successful convention. The ideal thing, if EGO will be managed, the ideal thing will have been to genuinely reconcile, shift the convention, even if it has to hold early next year, sort out the issue of procedural issues. Like all those states, the way I understand politics is that congresses are supposed to be held from ward level to local government level to state before the convention. Because that's how delegates will be elected. For those who are not statutory delegates, like Honorable Ibrahim Shaba, those that will be delegates, will then be determined from those congresses, and then will go to the convention. And then there is always this issue of zoning. Which zone produces women leader, chairman, secretary, and all of that. Have they settled that? So, for me, if they press ahead to have this convention, it will be like a bird that's flying with one wing. Because there is a popular adage that while a cripple, a leper rather, may not be able to milk a cow, but he can spill the milk. Right now, if you remember what happened in Plateau that led to the sack of members elected, up to senators who were elected on the platform of PDP, what did the court say? The court said they don't have structure. The party does not have structure and could not have fielded candidate, even though the Supreme Court later overturned that by upholding the election of the governor, Caleb Mutfwang. But when you see issues around state chapters being in crisis, you have not been able to mend fences, reconcile those warring factions, then you press ahead and have a convention. At the end of the day, it will come back to haunt you. Because this whole issue, by the time you elect people who the court may eventually invalidate their election, that time may be too late and too close to the general election for you to have a very successful party primaries and nomination, which is why there are defections. Because people are afraid that if I stay in this party, a party that is already factionalized, and we pretend all is well, and there are court cases going on, and it eventually led to the Supreme Court now gave a decision for and against. And assuming without considering the general election had been held by the time that court decision came, and it happens to be the faction that fielded the candidate, then your victory is nullified. Let's not say it has not happened. In 2019, APC suffered that issue. In Zamfara. No, yes. Wait, clear. Sorry, let me land on this thought. In Zamfara and in Rivers, where the Supreme Court said because of the intra-party crisis, APC cannot fit candidates in Rivers. And then in the case of Zamfara, where election had already been held, the Supreme Court judged and said INEC should go and withdraw the certificate of return of already elected members and give it to those who are runner-up, from the governor down to all the other people who were elected under APC. So PDP should learn from that.
If I don't stop you, if I don't stop you.
No, I just thank you for giving me the honor to land on my thoughts.
You end this program. But you have touched on very critical issues, defection, very, very important. You have also looked at the implications of holding that convention, the legal implications of holding that convention. These are two critical areas that we would also look at. The issue emanating from PDP's internal crisis, in fact, hydra-headed, as you would call them. But let's bring in Professor Emmanuel, of course, who is joining us, Emmanuel Remi Ayede, who is joining us via Zoom from Ibadan. Prof, Honorable here didn't want to mention names. Jide probably maybe played a smart one too, but of course, but we know the leaders that they are talking about.
But you said you don't know them.
No, the names.
Now you know.
No, the names. The names of the PDP. We can mention some prominent names, apparently. Known prominent names. We are talking about people like the former vice president. We are talking about people like the former governors, the G5 governors you mentioned. You also mentioned everybody. We know the G5 governors. We also know the role, of course, governor of Bauchi. We know the FCT minister. These are not external factors. They are internal factors. They are PDP's own. And they are wielding such overriding, such overwhelming, competing influence, each one of them. I'm just wondering, Prof, from your political scientist viewpoint, how does this impact on should I say, the coherence of the party, and then the loyalty to institutions?
Yeah, I think it's very clear that individuals matter more than institutions, even more than the rules of the game and the party. That internal grievance procedures have collapsed. And then those who feel there was no hope with the party have voted with their feet by going to the ADC. So we have a situation where the center can no longer hold. And as it looks, it seems that the PDP is going to walk into 2027 with a divided Congress, where you have either you have parallel conventions, or you have a controversial convention that will not stand the test of time. If the current pressure goes on, PDP is not likely to be able to stand up when it matters come 2027. We have seen this type of crisis before, and Jide has elaborated and pointed to some of those instances. It seems there's an orchestrated effort to make PDP relevant in 2027. And the tragedy of it is that these are all being perpetuated by members of the party, either because there are other interests that conflict with the requirements of a strong and formidable party, or they simply don't think that their interests is better served by a political party, by the PDP, that is a strong political party. I don't see PDP becoming relevant, especially regarding the presidential election in 2027.
In Nigeria's 26 years of democracy so far, I mean from 1999, why does it seem that no major political party has managed to achieve institutional maturity to date?
Yeah, I think it's the mindset of the Nigerian elite. They like going for broke. And there's no consensus around the vision of a country that they want to build. And because of that, politics is a do-or-die matter. There are no red lines when it comes to politicking. And because of that, we experience the kind of instability that we did not envisage when the country returned to democracy in 1999. We thought that with the emergence of the G34 and their determination to wrest power from the military, that the experience under military rule was sufficient, to bring people together and for them to be able to manage their differences. But that has not turned out to be a very good reading of the Nigerian elites. I think that we do not have a sense of long-term visioning for the country. And it also shows very clearly that we have a huge leadership deficit. And this is not manifesting only in the political process. It has also shown very vividly in the way the economy has been managed. We don't have this continuity and this consensus that is required around policies to say this is the direction of the country for the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, and everyone buys into it and becomes a basis, for discipline, whether within the party or within government. That has not turned out to be the case. Recently, I think early this year, the National Assembly, the Center for Democratic and Legislative Studies, tried to create a forum where they can try to promote or build this kind of consensus so that the zero-sum politics will be ameliorated. But apparently that has not worked. And if you also look at the way elections are conducted, the whole idea of eliminating violence, removing rigging, through the use of technology, generally making institutional process much more transparent and stable, you see that we also have a major problem because the tendency to disobey law, to break ranks, to take any measure feasible, regardless of the consequences, remain part of the ethos of politics. And until the elite are able to overcome this approach to politics, getting stable political institutions, especially political parties, be a very difficult challenge. What we have now is that each time we have a president or we have a governor, the party becomes a tool in the hand of that governor or president. And once the president leaves, the next president takes over. So we don't have a party that is in place influencing decisions of government, becoming an instrument of stability across time. So that's the crux of the matter.
Thank you. We'll return to you in a moment. We're back to the studio. Honorable Shaba, I do appreciate, your being forthright and factual in responding to the first question. There's no doubt about, the response you provided. And I will hope that in my next question as well, I'll see those facts, being brought out. Now, at the onset, the perception was that the headache of the party, was being driven by the issue, of course, with the former vice president on one hand, but he had left. I mean, he has left the party. So his own headache is gone. Now, some people believe that this second stage, what IT experts will call the deep layer stage, is now being driven by the Damagun-led faction on one hand, the G5 governors-led, on the other hand, and the Samuel Anyanwu Wike faction on the other hand. Where is this issue? What is the problem? Or where lies the problem?
Yeah, the problem is, to my mind, is seeking to control the levels of decision-making at the party level. Obviously, strange bedfellows got together under the guise of G5 and in cohort with some national leaders decided they've had enough of the Waziri, that's the Atiku Abubakar, even as the party's presidential candidate. In the course of the campaigns, I recall, Ibadan was the only presidential rally outside of my immediate constituency that I attended. And lo and behold, a PDP governor in a PDP state, control state, who was supposed to host the convention was conspicuously absent. You know, that was a disservice to the party in my humble estimation. And at all-time material to the convention, I mean the campaigns and everything, all these people who today are daggers drawn were all whining and dining together. So the internal contradictions inherent in their coming together are beginning to manifest. And today, you have people who have what in law sometimes you call participe criminis, you know, fighting each other over the spoils of, because there are spoils emanating from Atiku's exit. So they're now fighting each other over those spoils. It's not a wise thing to do, you know, because even among thieves, there must be honor, with all due respect. So coming back home, it do appear, and I think it's rather ironic, that people are not being circumspect of how they evolved, how all these alliances came about. I, for one, for anybody that has any modicum of shame and responsibility, you will be very, very careful how you tread, along. Haven't been able to successfully balkanize the party and chase out some of the people who were considered to be, having a stranglehold on the party's structure. So today, it's quite interesting how things, but it's not altogether unexpected. Some of us foresaw it. And you now see the people who together did one or two things that looked to me like a disservice to the party. Beginning from Damagun, with all due respect, it's ironic. It's funny that he's even still talking about factionalization when ab initio he presided over one of the most horrible, political arrangements, running the party without recourse to the constitution and everything and law. Today you have PDP have a case in court. Damagun will want to appoint an external solicitor without the input of the national legal advisor. They will be struggling over who represents what, and all that charade took place over you. So as it is today, it is too late in the day to want to complain about the overbearing influence of somebody that willingly you surrendered your sovereignty to. And in this connection, I'm talking about those who they left the party to drift and allow someone come in to take charge of, making things happen in the party. Today, you want to wake up to that reality and say you are challenging it. In the words of Justice Oputa of blessed memory, he will simply say, continue in your peaceful slumber. It's too late in the day.
In all of this, as a party man and lawyer, would you say that the judiciary is overstepping in party administration, or is it filling a leadership vacuum as it is? That would be unfair. In the PDP crisis, you would be unfair to the judiciary if I just went all out to say the judiciary is interfering. The judiciary never instituted any action. It's party men that took the cases to the judiciary. But it's giving conflicting judgments.
I'll get to that. That is a different kettle of fish altogether, with all due respect. In the whole of this mess, you invited the judiciary into your own supposed internal affairs. And you must be ready to take the consequences. The judgments are not delivered on the basis of your own sentiment or anything. They are supposed to be delivered according to law. It may suit you, it may not suit you. But people have taken their cases to court seeking redress, the court determines it one way or the other. So whether you are satisfied or dissatisfied, the only option open to you is either to go to appeal or accept it in good faith.
Beautiful.
If you do not accept it in good faith, then you go on appeal. If you do neither, then you are inviting anarchy. And people like us will not be parties to that.
I would also like us to look at whether the judgment of the Federal High Court, whether it has been vitiated or not. And then whether there is the State High Court, the judgment of the State High Court can overrule that of the Federal High Court. Will come, but let me exhaust this issue of dual political identity or multiple political identity. And Jide, I'm just wondering, what does that mean for parties and party integrity? Because we know that is happening within the PDP. Some people have dual party identity. Some have multiple party identity.
Absolutely.
Some are also having errand boys within the PDP that are doing the dirty works for them.
See, Claire, as a student of politics and as somebody who has followed political development since 1999, if you go back in time, it would be simplistic to just take the crisis in PDP from Damagun. Why is it that PDP has never, only once, has it had a chairman that completes 4 years? Once. I think I call him Amadu Ali. I stand to be corrected. All the other chairmen
Truncated.
have their tenure truncated. The one that will have completed was Secondus. Has 2 months, 2 or 3 months to go. They said, no, go. They pushed him out. They brought Ayu. Because they lost election. Ayu, go. They brought Damagun. Damagun served in acting capacity for 2 years before you remember to now confirm his acting and convert him to national chairman. Now, he's not even on the ballot. They went and said, we have had a consensus candidate who will be our national chairman. That was as at last weekend. And today you see court judgment flying all over the place. The issue is that, from my own reckoning and as a student of politics, even if you go to Supreme Court, if you don't come back to a round table and genuinely reconcile, not even the court can resolve your issue. Why did I say so? Look at what's happening in Labour Party. Labour Party got a Supreme Court decision that is not being differently interpreted by the two warring factions in that party. There's a Nana Usman faction supported by Alex Oti, governor of Abia State, who went to INEC and started marking, see this portion of the Supreme Court. It says, tenure of Julius Abuja has expired. So we are the one in charge that you should recognize. Abuja said, you people are jokers. That's after Supreme Court decision.
Jide, I want you to speak specifically.
No, I know, but I'm just drawing reference that don't put any party that puts its hope on the judiciary will still be disappointed because it's human factor that is driving it. And unless the dramatist personnel decides of their own to sheath sword, to surrender some, to allow their ego to strip themselves of that ego. Because what is at stake here is about influence. It's not even money. The people who are involved. Okay, let me be specific. Iyesan Wike and Seyi Makinde are both billionaires. They call themselves in-law. So it's in-laws at work. They were both in the same camp when they were doing multiple identity that you are talking about. Atiku Abubakar lost all the 33 local governments in Oyo State when Seyi Makinde, the PDP governor, was there. So what happened? But he won his own election two weeks after, overwhelmingly. So when people care less about what we call anti-party. And they say, but everybody does it now. You get? Even the chairman board of trustee of PDP has endorsed Alex Otti in his Abia state. The chairman, Adolphus Wabara, former president of the Senate, endorsed Alex Otti of Labour Party for second term. And you are the conscience of the party, you are the one sitting. So, how would you then say Wike is doing anti-party? And you want to suspend or expel him? So, everybody is doing what is convenient for them outside of the rule books. Because it's about, there is no fidelity to the party constitution, no fidelity to the party guidelines, to the electoral guidelines, and that is what has brought this whole crisis up. If there was fidelity to the party constitution, you said there will be rotation, power rotation. And then we had a northern governor for 8 years.
You still have not told me how that impacts on a political party.
No, I've told you.
It's like holding citizenship of both countries.
That is what I'm saying. Is it not anti-party? Why will you hold citizenship of two countries? Or why will you assume, okay, let's be very practical. There are people we know who are saying, I remain in PDP, but I'm working for APC. Is that allowed under your party constitution? I just alluded to it. I've mentioned names of people who are involved. What else do you want me to say, my dear sister? The bottom line is that when people engage in impunity and even say, I cannot be suspended, I cannot be expelled, I am the party, daring the party and saying, this thing will not happen unless you do it my way. It's either my way or highway. And that's, you know, the moment you start condoning certain things from time past, you know, there was a time that, and this is what I want us to also bear in mind, party funding. How is the party being funded? Who are the funders of the party? At some point, one individual claimed to be the major financier of the PDP. Should that have been allowed? You cannot, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. You cannot allow one individual to use whether it's personal or state resources to fund the party, and then you don't want him to have a say on what goes on within the party. You remember at some point they went and brought SAS, Senator Alimadu Sheriff, from ANPP to come and be the national chairman of PDP. For what reason? Perhaps party funding. Now, the man wanted certain things done in certain ways. You say, no, you cannot have it done that way. And he said, oh, but I'm using my own resources to run this party on your behalf. So one problem, apart from issue of anti-party, one problem that PDP is suffering from is post-election loss traumatic disorder.
I'll put you on hold. Prof, I like that. Professor Ayede, I want you to contextualize conflict of interest for us within the different paradigms in political science. I mean, is PDP setting a dangerous precedent for party discipline in Nigeria?
I think if there's a model for party discipline, you find it probably only close in the APC, in the sense that over the years, as a result of the necessity to play the opposition role, they've been able to rally around that single objective. And it's also apparent right now that the president is also able to enforce party discipline as the leader of the party today. Otherwise, one of the sickness of political parties in Nigeria is sheer lack of party discipline. But, you know, this is understandable because the the kind of electoral system and the party system that we have creates room for this kind of possibilities. This whole idea of you can move from one party to the other without consequences. This is actually what is responsible for the situation. And it can also be argued that if the APC falls out of power, they may also face the same kind of consequence. So whether it's a post-election loss traumatic disorder, it's a different kettle of fish. Because if you look at the first past the post system that we used, it's a zero-sum approach where if you win 44% of the vote, you get nothing. The person who wins gets everything. This is very different from a proportional representation system where you allocated seats according to the number of votes that you are able to garner. In that particular situation, party relevance and party strength becomes very important, and party discipline becomes very critical. Now, if you now put that within a parliamentary system where the government rises and falls at the behest of the party, then you can enforce party discipline. But in a presidential system of this nature, with the first past the post system, where party funding is also not very clearly delineated, and transparency and accountability in terms of accounting for party sources of funds is not also well established, you can't but have the kind of situation that we are now groveling in. So in terms of the model of lack of party discipline, it is not only the PDP. The reason why it's really because it has had a longer lifespan and it has also been in government. Otherwise, if you look at other parties, whether it's the Labour Party or the Accord or ABGA, you see that level of indiscipline being manifested across. And that's why some people have described political parties in Nigeria as a major problem for democracy. And also that the political parties, they are nothing but a purpose vehicle to just for people to use to rise onto power. So we don't really have parties in the traditional sense of it, with their own bureaucracy, with their own leadership, able to defend certain programs and ensure that they are carried out within government. So it is not the PDP that we should look as a model of indiscipline, but rather as a part of the institutional architecture of electoral system and electoral process, as well as the party system, as major problems. The electoral formula does not in any way seek to establish strong parties that can control government or even control their members in and out of power.
So, Ayede, thank you very much for your contribution. We'll get back to you. Honorable Shaba, I like the multiple caps that you wear for this conversation particularly. A member of the PDP, a former member of the House of Representatives, and a lawyer. And my next question is, Prof, alluded to it a bit, how easily people migrate from one political party to another. Now, every assembly has constitution amendment. Why does it seem that none has ever considered making it a bit difficult, a bit cumbersome for such movements, such that I remember one former governor who is in the Senate now. Anyway, there are a lot of governors now, so I'm not blowing cover. There are a lot of governors in Senate now who was a member of one party in the morning and was a member of another party in the night. That's easy. Why does the National Assembly not see this as a problem to tackle in constitution amendment? Say, make it a bit difficult. I mean, if you move to a party, you spend XYZ amount, for instance, of time before you can move to another party, and on like that.
Maybe you should have said, why does the National Assembly turn a blind eye?
They are major beneficiaries. I
didn't say that.
No. It's easy to blame the National Assembly, but you must also look at our extant laws. You talk about amending the constitution or the electoral, what have you, to cater for defections. The laws are there, clear, unambiguous. You move, you lose your seat. I was here a few weeks ago when I spoke on this. And as at that time, I asked the question quite rhetorically, who has suffered any consequence as a result of so doing, defection? None.
Maybe it's watery.
Just a moment, because my argument was talking about incessant, perpetual reforms of our laws without reforming the characters behind the drivers of the law, which is more opposite in my humble opinion. I spoke to that just a few weeks ago. So if you look at the laws are clear, unambiguous. But so long as this principle of strict adherence to party inclinations, to the detriment of extant laws, the larger society, the constitution that we have sworn to uphold, continue to hold sway, we're going to be in this problem. The laws, after the session we had here, and I think it was last week, one member suffered the consequence of defection. I must give it to the courts. Yeah. I don't know whether they were listening to me or not, but I thought that. But the problem is not even the courts as it is with the presiding officers of the respective houses of assembly. Mind you, this rule does not relate to governors. It's only to elected parliamentarians. The last time I checked. So if you look at it, if the presiding officer, and I love the word, blind eye, is it even blind eye? They even encourage it, because to be able to defect on the floor of the National Assembly, for instance, the speaker or the Senate president will read a letter from the so-called member, I member XYZ representing constituency XYZ have decided to port from the party that took me there to another party.
And
yes, it's celebrated in brazen disregard to extant laws. So who do you blame? Is it the lawmakers, those who made the law, or those who are presiding officers of the respective...
Presiding officers are lawmakers.
That's what I'm saying. But they are acting in different capacities here. The capacity of lawmaking is different. You make that one, the law is already there, so it becomes open to all to implement. But the major drivers of the implementation are the respective presiding officers of, even at the state houses of assembly. Consequences like that hardly come to bear, and that is why it will fester. But mind you, like someone amongst us opined earlier, I think it was Jide, the PDP, when you have a party structure, you see this movement, you need to really profile it. Is it as a result of the superlative performance of the APC? Hell no, that's debatable.
They say if there's crisis, I think that's a caveat.
Yeah, it's more out of self-preservation. I'm not going to stay in a party where I don't even know who will sign my nomination form to INEC. You understand? The crisis is such that people are afraid, they are preserving themselves. They are thinking, look, if we go into electioneering with this fragmented party, we may suffer the Zamfara consequence maybe when there's a judicial challenge after post-election. Nobody wants to take that risk.
That's why I want to ask this next question, which is very, very related to, the Omotosho judgment.
Yes.
Ruled that for any convention to happen, there must be compliance to the statutory, requirements of PDP's rules and regulations. Yes. And one of which is the notification of a 21-day notification to INEC, signed by a duly recognized national chairman and the secretary. So, who is the PDP's national chairman at this moment, and who is the secretary?
I told her material to that judgment. It was Damagu and Anyanwu, respectively.
Okay.
I told her material to that judgment.
Yes.
But you see, the problem is you have a court judgment. You see, decisions of the courts is not a buffet. Where you pick and choose. It's not for convenience. You don't obey for convenience. If you want to, sometimes when you hasten to, that which you try to run rings around will wait for you at the end of the corner. Now we have a court judgment. Rather than address it, see how you are able to maybe ask for a stay or go on appeal, ask for accelerated hearing, because of course you do have all the conditions that will warrant the court to look into it. The convention will have expended a lot of money in planning and everything. All this will be wasted unless you vacated this order. I'm not seeing any of those happening. Rather, we have taken an ingenious way and very dangerous route of going to another court in another jurisdiction to take on not just the PDP. INEC must be a nominal party to this. And don't forget, INEC is a federal institution. I doubt if the state high courts under that circumstance would have jurisdiction over the issues relating to INEC. Because if you do, it will be incoherent. If INEC says, okay, go ahead with the convention, and it has no bearing with INEC, and INEC refuses to, that's another lacuna. If INEC does not cover the convention in line with electoral law, that will be another lacuna. Now you don't have jurisdiction over INEC. Those who drove that process know, or have every reason to know, of the existence of the Justice Omotosho judgment. Rather than work on that judgment, you've taken this smart route. It's going to hurt ultimately.
You call it a smart route. And that was why Victor's question, this is where Victor's question about the role of the judiciary in all of this.
No, let's look at it this way. You don't play smart with judicial decisions.
Please, you can, just a moment, please do send us your messages. You remember this is an interactive conversation we're having, and our number to reach us is out there on the screen. And Honorable Shaba, I want to crave indulgence to call for a break. When we come back, you continue with your thought process.
I'm all yours.
All right, please, let's take a short break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. Like I said, please, you can be part of this conversation by sending us your messages. The number to send your SMS will be displayed on the screen. Please do not try to call. Just send us your SMS. Make it short and simple. Victor.
All right, let me get to Jide. I just want to, I know we've alluded to it in many
Shaba
ways.
was speaking.
Okay, let him conclude his thoughts. If he was...
Take me back to where we stopped.
Yes, we're talking about the relevance of Victor's question about the role of the judiciary in all of this. If the State High Court in Ibadan,
okay.
Why is it permissible to go elsewhere?
Now I'm connected to you. You see, let me tell you, as lawyers, sometimes we try to play smart. I've listened to people opine that, look, the parties, but for it to constitute what in law you call res judicata, the parties it has to be the same, the subject matter has to be the same, for all, I mean, let's face the facts. That is bunkum. It's absolute. It's not correct. Whichever way you look at it, the subject matter, the rest in both cases has to do with the convention. So if ultimately the judgment, there's no way the High Court in Ibadan will pretend not to be aware of Justice Omotosho's ruling. And what is playing out? You remember June 12th? One High Court will give, one will give in the midnight, the other will give early morning, conflicting judgments, do this. It's judicial anarchy that they are taking us to. If that happens, everything is lost. I would rather think that the judgment of a court, even if you don't like it, you took yourselves there. Our blame on the judiciary has to be limited. I mean, it has to be inboxed somehow. But the judiciary, the Oyo State judiciary, if you ask me, if they are taking on the case holistically, and it has to involve INEC, I would say it has no jurisdiction. But assuming, without considering, that it does, the fact that there is a subsisting order of a court of at least coordinated jurisdiction that has not been vacated should weigh heavily on the mind of his lordship in exercising the discretion.
So what is the judiciary doing about things like this?
NJC. Somebody has to trigger a process and say, look, this has happened. There's no way Justice XYZ, who don't have been aware, and he has gone ahead to do this, is going to bring the judiciary to disrepute. If somebody takes it up, perhaps they will look at it and look at the circumstances that led to the orders that have been given. And if they are found to be in breach of stare decisis or maintaining the integrity of the judiciary, you can be sure the relevant institution will take
All right.
take a position.
So we have some interesting messages. I don't know if yes,
I thought we'll just get a little more so that I probably have one.
Because this one is talking about jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yes, since we are at it. Who is this? Okay, Ndukwo from Enugu, thank you. You say Federal High Court, Abuja, has no jurisdiction over a convention to be held in Ibadan. Or your State High Court in Ibadan has that jurisdiction. Over the subject matter, His Excellency Nyesom Wike, an APC card-carrying member, is the driver of the Senator Ayaun faction. Is Nyesom Wike APC card-carrying?
Well, I don't know where he got the facts, but the issue is very clear. That is a submission made out of, I don't want to call it ignorance, with all due respect. The Federal High Court in Abuja, the PDP, there is only one PDP, which is the registered office of the PDP is here in Abuja. The parties are in Abuja. The subject matter has to do with the convention of the party, wherever it may be. Even it's going to be in Sambisa Forest. The Federal High Court is seized of jurisdiction. It was properly constituted. And having made a pronouncement on a fundamental issue, which is the subject of the decision or the ruling of the Oyo State High Court, that court ought to have precluded itself from delving into it, because it is what in law you call forum shopping, howsoever you want to disguise it. I know the lawyers in presenting their cases would have imputed into the writs and the document certain things that will give it a coloration of something fundamentally different, but the consequences are the same. You don't play smart with the judiciary. You obey the laws or appeal them, not go.
So not between them.
So if you ask me,
nothing has changed.
Oyo State, to the extent that INEC is a major party, unless it's a fundamental right enforcement case, which is not, the State High Court may not have exercised jurisdiction.
All right. Let me take a couple of messages that I have. This one is from Caleb Gendere in Plateau. PDP internal crisis. Way out is by reconciliation, forgiveness, accepting one another, stop jumping to another party, planning for next election, and protecting the party for victory. Okay? And this other one doesn't have a name. Says, Jide, thank you for saying the truth. How can you be in PDP and be working for another party and boasting that nobody can suspend or expel you from the party? Now, I'm going to ask, what's your assessment of the role of former governors in either reconciliation within the party or in pulling it apart?
It's not even former governors alone, it's also former and current. You see, the governors are the power block. But before I forget what I wanted to say in respect to the judiciary, I understand that Justice Omotosho's case is on appeal. Even Senator Samaya, who alluded to it yesterday, that they are already on appeal in that case. However, the Oyo State decision was an ex parte order that's supposed to last for 7 days. So it may still change the dynamics because so 7 days will still not cover till 15th, 16th of November. So we need to also understand that that is just an ex parte order. Then the third point is, as at yesterday, the chairman, the BOT has met and has set up a reconciliation committee, which they said they will meet again to review the situation on the 11th of November. So I'm just putting those timelines there. But let me come back to Victor's question about issues around former governors, current governors. See, the drivers of our political crisis are power brokers. Power brokers, whether former or current, who wants to remain relevant, who wants to be at the negotiation and decision table, who doesn't want to be left out of the power. And the unfortunate thing is that nobody is thinking about how to mold, integrate, manage the party out of failure. I said earlier on that PDP is suffering from post-election loss traumatic disorder. The reason why many people are bailing out of PDP today is because it's no longer in power. I said on a media, on a sister station 2 days ago, I said in politics, it's a tale of two countries, not two cities, Siberia and Saudi Arabia. You know Siberia, very inclement environment where nothing really works. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, is a land of honey, milk, and opportunities. So everybody wants to be in Saudi Arabia of politics, not in Siberia of politics. And there is always a struggle for relevance. Mm-hmm. So whether you are a former governor or a current governor, it's about negotiation. How to put people at the point. Let me tell you this. This whole PDP crisis is about who controls the National Working Committee. Who controls the NWC? And there are just about 20-something people in that place. But you see, in constituting that NWC, different power blocks donate people. They call it zoning. So you can see, this one will say, North Central, bring chairman. Southeast, bring secretary. South, bring woman leader. That's how they share the position. And now, these former governors and current governors want to be the one whose cronies and stooges will be the one occupying those positions, because they want people who can tell them what is going on in the party administration and management. And take directives. You can say that, obviously, Senator Samayawu is of the Wike faction. Damagun, initially, when Atiku Abubakar was in that fray, was aligning to Wike. But since Atiku left, he has now aligned himself with Makinde, all because of influence. It's not just about money, it's about influence, because, like I said, these are not hungry people looking for contracts. Not necessarily. But they just want to be at the decision-making table where whatever goes on the party does not escape their attention. And they want their loyalists within that NWC. So, in constituting that NWC, this one does not want to give way to the other, because it means political harakiri or political suicide, capitulation. So the bottom line is that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And that's why I said solution to PDP crisis is not even in court and court decisions. You can get to Supreme Court, get a Supreme Court decision, and still give different interpretations. Now, INEC has a directorate called Alternative Dispute Resolution Directorate, where people can subject themselves to a kind of mediation or arbitration. And if they can come off their IOCs, since they are finding it difficult. Don't forget, before the reconciliation committee that was set up yesterday, there was a Bukola Saraki reconciliation committee subsisting until yesterday. I don't know what Bukola Saraki committee has achieved since it was constituted. Now, they have dissolved that and have constituted somebody from Doctor or Ambassador from one Northeast to now head another reconciliation committee. So at what point, if you cannot resolve your issues amongst yourself, the court process will take far longer time than, because everything now is about 1 year to the next election. And in that 1 year, you need to first ensure that you have properly constituted National Working Committee that will drive the planning and the conduct of primaries By this time next year, it's going to be campaigns.
Okay.
You are not going to be talking about NWC, who is in the NWC, who is not in the NWC. So the timeline, the best approach for APC, like somebody who sent us message from Enugu said, reconciliation. But if you cannot do it within yourself, approach INEC. Subject yourself to the ADR processes of INEC to say, let's help us to foster unity and reconciliation.
I love that. I love that, Victor. I think Professor Ayede, if you're still with us, please. This question is for you, and I would like you to speak to us on interest, because from all that we're saying, it will appear that the views of Minister Wike, that those who are dragging this part, the PDP appease, don't have the interest of that party. Because if you look from his standpoint, he had invested a lot in the party. Right now he's not asking anybody for money. So he's saying, look, why don't we come together, and salvage it? Let us put the right people there. Is that what you're reading? Is that the perception?
Well, I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. Because if you want to say you are suing for reconciliation, in what terms, on what basis? The individuals involved, they are not strangers to each other. And so when any of them speak, the other is able to interpret it in terms of the full implication of what is said. In fact, so much so that sometimes we don't even understand it. Now, there's also the whole notion of what you say and what you do. Do they cohere, or is there a contradiction between your spoken words and the action taken? This is somebody, a party stalwart, who has a very strong foothold in the government of the ruling party. Somebody who has also said that he would support the incumbent president for the 2027 election. So there are too many contradictory positions that has made it difficult to take whatever Wike says on its face value. Then when you also look at its larger than life influence in PDP, and the fact that other important and powerful elements in PDP have actually moved, seeing that there's no way they can bend Wike or cut him to size. And so they've gone into the ADC. What is happening is that even those who were supposed to be on the side of Wike are finding it increasingly difficult to put the party together without trying to move on, regardless of what PDP, what Wike says or what is proposing. So I think fundamentally there's a conflict of value, more than even a conflict of interest among these actors. And that's why I don't see the PDP reconciling these very powerful parties before the 2027 election. My feeling is really that the party will be paralyzed until the elections are over. What can happen is, because as Jide said, the power bloc are supposed to be the governors, and you have seen substantial number of them moving to the APC. So whatever governor is left within the PDP would control the PDP in his or her state. In his state, there's no female governor. Then they will decide what kind of negotiation they are likely to make, either with the APC or the president, so that they continue to take charge of their state, so that they will be able to determine, the electoral outcome in their respective states. But that they are going to resolve and put all these differences behind them and quickly prepare for 2027, I think it's a tall order. The contradictions are too deep-seated for them to be able to do so. And this conflict of value will not change in a very short time. It's something that's likely to play out to its logical conclusion until the presidential elections are over.
Professor Ayede, thank you very much. Well, let me get back to Honorable Shaba Ibrahim, who is a party man. I am wondering, does INEC have any real powers to resolve the issues of the PDP, say, talking about the two different conventions or the leadership crisis for that matter? Jide alluded to something like that. Can INEC really intervene and bring peace about in the PDP?
No, sir. No, sir. The committee that he alluded to is merely advisory. In most cases, they are supposed to, I've forgotten the name they gave to it, supposed to guard where you have conflicting. I mean, you are laying claim to, I am the secretary, he is the secretary. They did go there. The PDP, they were there.
The ADR.
Yes, the ADR body. They went before it. When the Supreme Court handed this decision, there was one particular decision relating to, is it the Rivers legislators also? The one and the one that seemed to suggest it also involves who was national secretary. National secretary or no national secretary. When the Supreme Court, after a protracted litigation, simply said it was internal affairs of the party, that it was not their business interfering. I mean, that threw the party into. Both sides were, what kind of judgment do you give? And everybody is jubilating. Both sides were jubilating. I mean, there's some opacity. There's some opacity in that judgment. That
okay, this
unless,
is
it's opaque.
Because the laws should be clear.
Unambiguous. The judgment of the courts are supposed to be a command. They're not advisory.
Okay,
and just a moment.
No, because we don't have time, you have to quickly round off.
Okay, yes. So when you have such a situation, INEC perhaps intervened. And when INEC intervened, they said, look, let's advise you, and from our own interpretation, it's because you took yourself to that level. INEC had to come in advisedly. Not that it has the coercive powers to enforce discipline.
But just the last liner. Does this mean okay, does this mean messages? Okay, let's take the messages before the last liner. Please go ahead.
All right, let me take this one from NC Mafiana Esquire from Asaba Delta State. I happen to know him, by the way. The only antidote to internal crisis in political parties in Nigeria, he says, is the activation of political party internal disciplinary mechanisms. No external factors like the courts can successfully order it or enforce it. Parties must fearlessly apply their disciplinary measures with courage and fairness, he says.
This is Honorable Ifeanyi Nwobodo from Enugu. I think PDP as a party needs to sit up and reorganize itself by enforcing discipline within it. The party chieftain of the PDP and not really helping the party as a result of diverse interests and greed. Thank you, Honorable Ifeanyi Nwobodo. I think in just 60 seconds, we'll just take from you and then we'll end. So the once largest political family in Africa. In history, we will say the collapse of an empire or the fall of an empire. Could this be the fall of the largest political family in Africa?
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it. But for me, when you look at politics from the prism of just contesting election, like everybody's fixated on 2027, you may be right in that context. Okay. But just let me finish. But if you look at the larger picture, you're looking at the larger picture, looking beyond 2027, particularly it has to do with the presidential election. That fixation to it is not helpful to anybody. The PDP can regroup. Because at the level we are, I expect, and common sense is not too common as we think, if we apply, put aside ego, bring everything together and go in as one, it may be difficult, but it is not impossible altogether.
It is obvious that Anambra... Oh, sorry, Victor.
Can the PDP reinvent itself from where you stand? Can the PDP reinvent itself, or it is over?
It's all over. It's a political institution. It's a living organization. I like the ascription, and I've used it, what Claire said about the fall of an empire. Empires rise and they fall. You can see what's happening to the Republican Party in U.S. They just had an election 2 days ago, was it? And they lost in the first place where they have the election. The Republicans lost, and people are already predicting the exit of the Republican presidency in 2026 or thereabout. So by and large, what I'm trying to say is that this may be beginning of the end of PDP, but in as far as it has not, at some point they will even want to merge. They were even open to merger with other parties. Maybe this is a time to have that rethink. Ab initio, for the better part of this year, there was even the whole argument whether PDP was going to join ADC or join Labour Party and all of that. So all options are on the table. They can reinvent themselves, but they need to strip themselves of this ego, which is the major impediment to reconciliation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jide Ojo. Let me thank you very much, Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst, for your time and your thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria. And Honorable Shaba Ibrahim, former member, House of Representatives, legal practitioner, and a member of the People's Democratic Party. We thank you very much for coming on the program.
I like your forthrightness.
It's my pleasure, always.
Yes.
Thank you so
All right, finally, let me get to Professor Remi Ayede, Professor of Political Institutions, Governance and Public Policy, Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan. He joined us via Zoom from Ibadan. We thank you very much for bringing the academic rigor into our conversation.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And that does it on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you so very much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Victor Azo.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.